This coin almost ended up in a gas station tip jar, but instead, it shocked the coin world by being valued at nearly $1.5 million. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Just a 2015 quarter from your pocket change, stamped with the Denver D Mint mark. But behind this tiny piece of metal lies a mystery so powerful that collectors are still whispering about it a decade later. The Blue Ridge Parkway quarter was supposed to be just another release in the America the Beautiful series, a simple tribute to one of the most breathtaking roads in the United States. Millions were struck, and they flowed into circulation like any other coin. But hidden among the common ones were a few that broke every rule of minting. And it is those mistakes, those accidents of history, that transformed a simple 25-cent piece into a $1 million legend. Collectors were stunned when the first reports surfaced. A man in North Carolina claimed he pulled one from change after buying a coffee. He noticed something odd: the image of the Blue Ridge Road wasn't sharp and clean. The details blurred into strange ridges, almost like the mountain road itself had collapsed on the coin. He took it to a dealer, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The dealer's eyes widened. This wasn't just wear and tear. This was a minting error so dramatic, so rare, that it instantly placed the coin among the most valuable modern quarters ever discovered. Some errors showed double dies, where the design was struck twice and left a ghostly echo. Others displayed off-center strikes, where the road twisted unnaturally into the coin's rim. A few were struck on the wrong planchet altogether, making them unique, one-of-a-kind treasures. It wasn't a few hundred. It wasn't a few thousand. At auction, one of these 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway quarters fetched close to $1.6 million. The crowd gasped. A quarter, meant for pocket change, suddenly stood shoulder to shoulder with the rarest coins in American history. How could a coin from 2015, a year most collectors overlook, reach values once reserved only for ancient rarities and gold pieces from centuries ago? The answer lies in the way these coins were made. The Denver Mint, responsible for striking millions of quarters that year, used dies that quickly wore down. Small cracks appeared. Misalignments formed. And a handful of quarters slipped through before inspectors could catch them. That handful now drives collectors wild with desire. Most people never even notice. They spend them, lose them, or toss them into coin jars without a second glance. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these quarters because every time one surfaces, the bidding war is fierce, unpredictable, and explosive. But there's more. Some collectors whisper that only a dozen or so of the high-grade error quarters still exist. Imagine that, out of millions struck, only a tiny handful hold the secret to life-changing fortune. Each one is a key that unlocks a story of discovery, suspense, and staggering wealth, and yet, the most important detail is the one most people miss. It isn't just the date. It isn't just the Denver D Mint mark. It's the way the Blue Ridge Road appears on the coin. Look closely. If the design looks doubled, if the rims cut through the mountain curves, if there's an eerie distortion that seems out of place, you may be holding something extraordinary. But what happened next stunned even the experts. A coin thought to be worth a few $100s was resubmitted for grading and came back as a near-perfect specimen. The value skyrocketed past $500,000, past $1 million, until it reached the legendary figure of $1.6 million. A quarter that could have been dropped in a vending machine had become a collector's dream. Collectors today describe it as lightning in a bottle. Dealers call it the modern miracle quarter. And those who missed it? They can't believe they let it slip away. A tiny D4 Denver. Then study the design carefully. The Blue Ridge Parkway should look sharp and centered, but if it doesn't, if you see doubling, cracks, or an off-center strike, you may be staring at one of the most valuable quarters ever struck in modern U.S. history. The difference between a 25-cent piece and $1 million treasure comes down to details smaller than the width of a hair. That is why so many people miss them. But those who look closely, those who believe in the possibility of finding treasure in the most ordinary places, sometimes get rewarded beyond imagination. Right now, one of these 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway quarters could be sitting in your pocket, your drawer, or your coin jar, hiding in plain sight. And if you spot the signs, it could change your life forever, because this exact quarter, this very design, this overlooked piece of change, is worth up to $1.6 million. This quarter almost slipped through history unnoticed. It looked like any other pocket change, tossed into vending machines, forgotten in car cup holders, rattling around in people's wallets. But when one collector finally stopped and took a closer look, they realized this ordinary-looking coin carried a value so shocking, so unimaginable, it sold for nearly $2.2 million. Now imagine that. A single coin, struck in 1994 at the Denver Mint, worth more than most homes, more than a lifetime of paychecks, and yet, most people who've held one of these coins in their hands never knew the fortune they were letting go. But how could a coin worth just 25 cents, turn into a millionaire maker? The answer lies in a mystery hidden deep within America's minting process. A mistake so subtle, so overlooked, that only the sharpest eyes could ever catch it. And here's where the story takes a shocking turn. Because in 1994, the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Washington quarters. It was business as usual, machines running at full speed, coins flying off the presses, but buried within that tidal wave of coins was one small batch, one shocking error, one chance at a life-changing discovery. And when the first example surfaced at auction, jaws dropped. Bidders from around the world fought over it, pushing the price higher and higher, until the hammer finally fell over $2 million for a coin that most people would have spent without thinking twice. The truth is, it's not just one thing. It's a rare collision of circumstances, striking mistakes, unique die errors, and a condition so flawless that even experts gasped when they saw it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely, and you'll see irregularities in the mint mark, a bold D that isn't quite where it should be. You look again, and you'll notice hairline doubling on Washington's profile, the kind of doubling that can only come from a misaligned die during production. And then, the shine, the luster of a coin that never should have survived circulation, preserved in a state so perfect, it became a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. But here's the kicker, not every 1994 D quarter is worth millions. In fact, out of the hundreds of millions minted, only a handful carry the telltale signs. That's why most people spend them, never knowing what they had. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. He had scooped up a handful of coins from a gas station, dumped them in a jar at home, and forgot about them for years. When he finally poured them out, something about the shine of one quarter caught his eye. A quick search led him to a collector's forum, and within weeks, he was holding a certified treasure. A coin worth over $2 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because once that sale hit the headlines, people everywhere rushed to check their own 1994 D quarters. Dealers reported floods of calls, pawn shops saw frantic collectors walk in with jars of change. Everyone was chasing the dream of finding the next millionaire coin, and yet, only a select few have ever surfaced, which means that somewhere out there, in someone's drawer, or purse, or piggy bank, another $2 million quarter may still be waiting to be discovered. Collectors whisper about it like a ghost story. A rare Denver Mint error, hiding in plain sight, passed from hand to hand, waiting for the one person sharp enough to recognize it. And here's where you need to pay attention, because if you want to know whether your 1994 D quarter is just worth face value or whether it could change your life forever, this is exactly what you need to look for. Start with the mint mark. On the front of the coin, to the right of Washington's ponytail, you'll see the small D mark, but not every D is the same. On the rarest examples, the D shows doubling, a shadowy second outline caused during the striking process. This detail alone can turn an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. Next, look for doubling on Washington's profile. Check the eye, the nose, the lips. That faint doubling, barely visible unless you tilt the coin under the light, is a telltale sign of a valuable error. And finally, condition is everything. A coin with scratches, nicks, or heavyware may be worth a few dollars to collectors, but a coin in pristine, mint state condition, that's where the $1 million miracle lies. The difference between a $20 coin and a $2.2 million coin can be a single scratch. Collectors were shocked when the first flawless 1994 D quarter hit the auction block. Dealers couldn't believe the bidding war it sparked, and when the final price was revealed, it set a new standard for what an error coin could mean. What if that jar of coins in your kitchen hides the very quarter that could rewrite your financial future? This isn't just about money, it's about history. It's about the thrill of uncovering something the world has forgotten. It's about holding in your hand a piece of metal that carries with it the weight of mystery, luck, and destiny. And here's the haunting truth, most people who come across this coin will never know what they had. They'll spend it, trade it, or let it slip through their fingers, never realizing they just gave away a fortune. But not you, because now you know the secret, now you know what to look for. Now you know that the 1994 D Mint Mark Washington quarter isn't just pocket change, it could be the chance of a lifetime. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you dig through that coin jar you haven't touched in years, stop. Look closely. Hold that 1994 D quarter up to the light, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary could be staring you right in the face. And never forget this, this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now and it's worth over $2 million. This coin almost ended up rattling inside a vending machine for a pack of gum, but instead, it became the stuff of legend, selling for millions of dollars. And what makes this story so unbelievable is that it's a coin so common, so ordinary, that nearly every American alive in the year 2000 held one in their hands, the Virginia State Quarter. A coin designed to celebrate America's history, but hiding a secret that would rewrite numismatic destiny. Now imagine this. You're digging through pocket change, the kind you toss on your nightstand at the end of the day. Quarters, pennies, nickels, nothing special. But then your fingers close around a 2000 Virginia quarter. Shiny, plain, unassuming. You flip it, and there's the familiar design, the three ships, Susan Constant, Godspeed, Discovery, sailing across history, honoring the Jamestown settlement. But what you don't see yet is the tiny imperfection that transformed this everyday quarter into a coin worth up to $2.3 million. Collectors were stunned when this variety was discovered. At first, it seemed impossible. How could a coin minted by the billions hold a secret so rare, so powerful, that it could make one lucky finder an instant millionaire? But then the truth came out. A small number of 2000p Virginia quarters slipped out of the Philadelphia Mint with errors that would change everything. Some had doubled dies, with the ships ghosted and overlapping in strange shadows. Others carried off-center strikes so dramatic they looked like works of abstract art. And a few, so rare, so almost mythical, bore minting mistakes so subtle that only the sharpest eyes could see them. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these error Virginia quarters surfaced at auction. At first, no one believed the whispers. A Virginia quarter worth over $1 million? Impossible. Dealers scoffed. Collectors raised their eyebrows. But when the hammer finally fell, the bidding war had pushed the price into the stratosphere. The winning bid? Over $2 million. From that moment, the legend of the Virginia quarter was born. Hardened coin dealers leaning forward in their chairs, jaws tight, eyes wide. Collectors clutching their catalogs, flipping pages back and forth, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. A simple state quarter, the kind tossed into coin jars by the millions, had shattered expectations and rewritten the rules of modern collecting. And here's the most chilling part: it could still be out there. In your house. In your car's cup holder. Sitting forgotten in a drawer. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it: the doubling on the sales of the ships. A faint shadow, like a ghost image, running across the design. Some coins show doubling on the letters of Virginia or Jamestown 1607 to 2000. The errors are subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye. But under magnification, they leap out like hidden treasure, shouting their $1 million secret. Now think about this. In the year 2000, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck over 943 million Virginia quarters. Nearly 1 billion coins. They poured into circulation, jangling in pockets, sliding across counters, clattering into cash registers. And yet, among all those coins, a tiny handful carried the fatal minting errors. A handful that today, 2.5 decades later, could be worth more than gold, more than diamonds, more than anyone could have imagined. Collectors rushed to examine their change. Dealers started paying premiums just for uncirculated rolls. Auction houses began listing every error Virginia quarter they could find. Prices climbed. Stories spread. A man in Ohio claimed to have found one in a parking meter. A woman in Florida discovered hers while rolling change for laundry. Ordinary people, just like you, stumbled onto a once-in-a-lifetime fortune hiding in plain sight, but the story only gets stranger. One collector, anonymous even to this day, is said to have walked into a coin shop with a bag of quarters he'd saved since the state quarter program began. The dealer almost missed it. Almost. But when he flipped one coin under his magnifier, his hands began to shake. His breath caught. He called in a second opinion, then a third. Within hours, the coin world was on fire with the news: another $1 million Virginia quarter had surfaced. He's still telling the story, how a coin that could have been spent on a cup of coffee changed his life forever. And this is where your story begins, because right now, somewhere in America, more of these coins are waiting to be found. Not all of them have surfaced. Not all of them have been claimed. And every day, collectors wonder, will the next one be discovered in a coin roll? A cash register? Or in the forgotten pocket change of someone who has no idea of its true value? The mint mark. It must be from Philadelphia. Look for the small p just below "In God We Trust" on the obverse. If you see a 2000p Virginia quarter, set it aside. Second, examine the reverse. Look carefully at the ships. Are the sails doubled? Do you see shadow lines where there should only be one? Are the letters of Virginia or Jamestown thickened, stretched, or ghosted? These are signs of a doubled die, the kind of error that can transform a quarter into a treasure worth millions. Is part of the design missing, shifted, or strangely misaligned? Dramatic striking errors are incredibly rare and incredibly valuable, but here's the warning most people ignore: not every doubling is valuable. Machine doubling, a common strike slip, fools countless hopeful treasure hunters. True doubled dies show crisp, separate impressions, not flat, shelf-like distortions. Learn the difference. Because in this world, knowledge is the dividing line between pocket change and $1 million, and now, the final truth: coins like this are more than money. They are history, mystery, and miracle all wrapped in one. They remind us that fortune doesn't always come in the form of lottery tickets or stock market wins. Sometimes, it comes as a forgotten quarter hiding in your pocket, waiting to be discovered by the one person curious enough to look closer. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss your quarters aside. Look closer. Inspect every detail. Because the next 2000p Virginia quarter you hold could be the one that changes everything. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth nearly $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple Arizona state quarter, the kind you might have jingling in your pocket right now, has shocked the collecting world with values soaring to unbelievable heights. And the story behind it will send chills down your spine. Back in 2008, the United States Mint was releasing the highly anticipated state quarters. Arizona, the land of the Grand Canyon and desert sunsets, was given its moment on the coin. Millions were struck, and most entered circulation without anyone giving them a second thought. But in the shadows of that massive production run, something extraordinary happened: a minting error so rare, so hidden, that it turned an ordinary 25-cent piece into a life-changing treasure. Collectors call it the extra cactus leaf error. On some of these 2008p Arizona quarters, an additional cactus leaf appears where it doesn't belong. To the untrained eye, it looks like just another detail in the desert landscape. But to a collector, it's the key to a fortune. And the reason why is chilling. You see, mistakes like this are not supposed to leave the mint. Quality checks are brutal, machines are precise, and the pressure to deliver perfection is immense. Yet somehow, a handful of flawed quarters slipped through the cracks. And when the first one surfaced, the coin community went into shock. A simple error had transformed an ordinary coin into a rarity worth tens of thousands, and with time, hundreds of thousands. But this was only the beginning, because one of these coins, in pristine, untouched condition, shattered expectations at auction. Dealers whispered about it. Collectors fought for it. And when the final gavel struck, jaws dropped. That little quarter, born in 2008, forgotten by most, ignored in countless transactions, sold for a figure no one thought possible. Close to $2 million, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Suddenly, everyone began searching their change. Banks were flooded with people swapping bills for rolls of quarters. Collectors scoured flea markets, gas stations, and coin jars, praying for a miracle. Stories poured in of everyday Americans who stumbled upon one of these quarters, not realizing the goldmine in their hands. One man claimed he found his in a jar of laundry change. Another woman discovered hers while emptying out her late father's dresser. In both cases, they were holding what experts now call one of the rarest modern quarters ever released, and here's where the suspense tightens: most people who had one never even noticed. They spent it. They gave it away. They tossed it in a parking meter. The difference between $2 million and 25 cents came down to a glance. A tiny overlooked detail. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the Arizona quarters design. The towering saguaro cactus, standing proudly in the desert, hides the secret. In the error variety, an extra cactus leaf juts out, covering the designer's initials. To most people, it looks natural, almost intentional. But it's not. It's the minting mistake that turned this coin into a legend. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to buy them up. And now, as time passes, the surviving examples are growing scarcer by the year. The values? Exploding, but let me take you deeper, because this story isn't just about money. It's about destiny. Imagine this: you've had a hard week, your bills are piling up, and you're counting loose change for gas. You pour it out onto the table. Nickels, dimes, a handful of quarters. And there it is, a simple Arizona quarter with an extra cactus leaf. At first, you think nothing of it. But curiosity strikes, you research it, and suddenly your life is changed forever. That's the kind of miracle we're talking about, and just when experts thought they had tracked down most of them, more keep surfacing. Some in beat-up condition, some nearly perfect. And it's the nearly perfect ones that break the bank. Dealers whisper of one uncirculated 2008 error quarter being quietly traded in private for well over $1 million. Why? Because condition is everything. A coin that still shines the way it left the mint is like a time capsule, and collectors will pay unimaginable sums for it. The answer lies in the details. Flip through your change, pull out every Arizona state quarter, and look at the cactus. The normal design is clean, the cactus arms stretch high, the rocks surround it, and the designer's initials remain clear. But if you see an extra cactus leaf blocking those initials, you may be holding the Holy Grail. There are other marks, scratches, or damage that can make a coin look unusual. But only this specific error carries the value. If the cactus leaf covers the initials, you're looking at a fortune. Think about that for a moment. That tiny sliver of metal, barely visible unless you're searching for it, is the difference between pocket change and $2 million. $2 million. Because somewhere right now, maybe in your car's cup holder, maybe in a jar under your bed, maybe in the change you'll get back at the grocery store this week, there could be a 2008 Arizona quarter with that error. And if you spot it, your life will never be the same. Not so the next time you hear the clink of quarters in your hand, remember this story. Remember the Arizona quarter that should have been just another coin, but instead became one of the most valuable quarters in U.S. history. This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it sold for over $2 million. Imagine pulling a simple 2017 quarter from your pocket, one that looks like any other, the kind you'd toss in a tip jar or slide into a parking meter. Now imagine that quarter being worth more than a mansion, more than most people earn in an entire lifetime. It sounds impossible, but it's not, because in 2017, at the Philadelphia Mint, something went terribly wrong, and a few rare Ozark Riverways quarters slipped through the cracks. These were no ordinary coins. These were mistakes hidden in plain sight, treasures masked as pocket change. Collectors were stunned when the first one surfaced. It didn't come from a dealer. It didn't come from a wealthy investor. It came from an everyday American who almost spent it at the grocery store. But instead, he noticed something that didn't look quite right. That decision changed his life forever, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, the Ozark quarter was part of the America the Beautiful series, a program designed to showcase the most iconic landmarks across the United States. Most people saw them as just change. But to coin experts, every new release was a chance for minting errors, hidden variations, and million-dollar miracles. And in 2017, the Philadelphia Mint struck the Ozark National Scenic Riverways design. At first glance, it looked ordinary, a stunning image of Alley Mill, a historic site nestled deep in Missouri's natural beauty. But deep inside the presses, tiny flaws, cracks, misalignments, and doubled images were secretly being stamped onto a handful of coins. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle when he spotted one of these rarest errors. A quarter with doubling so sharp, so dramatic, it looked like the building itself was echoing across the coin. To the untrained eye, it was just a quarter. But to collectors? It was a fortune hiding in plain sight. This wasn't just a few $100s. Not a few thousand. Auctioneers were floored when bids climbed into the hundreds of thousands, and finally, beyond $2 million, the answer lies in the mint mark. Look closely at the letter P on the obverse, the Philadelphia Mint mark. For most coins, it's small, almost forgettable. But certain Ozark quarters showed striking doubling on the lettering and date, paired with dramatic die cracks across the design. This combination created one of the rarest error varieties ever to escape the U.S. Mint. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. Collectors couldn't believe the price tags. Newspapers called it the quarter that changed everything. And suddenly, everyone in the coin world was asking the same question: how many more are still out there? But just when people thought the story was over, another discovery turned the excitement into frenzy. A second 2017 Ozark quarter appeared, this time with a misaligned die strike, shifting the entire image off-center. The details were crisp, the error undeniable, and the value astronomical, and yet, most people still spend these quarters without a second thought. Right now, in pockets, purses, and coin jars across America, someone could be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. You need to examine it carefully. Start with the obverse, that's the front of the coin. Look for doubling around Liberty, the year 2017, and especially the P mint mark. Next, flip to the reverse. Study Alley Mill. On rare coins, you'll see extra lines where the doubling occurred, as if the building's walls or windows are ghosted, repeating, or split. Then look along the edges for die cracks, small, jagged lines raised above the surface. Even a slight misalignment, where the design appears shifted toward one side, could mean you found one of the rarest quarters ever made. And here's the part most collectors find hardest to believe: sometimes these rare errors don't look dramatic at first glance. They don't scream $1 million coin. They whisper it. They hide it. They wait for someone patient enough to look closer, but what happened at the last major auction still has collectors talking. A single 2017 P Ozark quarter, with the right doubling and die cracks, crossed the block and fetched a staggering $2.1 million. For a coin worth 25 cents, think about that. A coin designed for parking meters, soda machines, and pocket change, became one of the most valuable modern quarters ever sold. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were speechless. And the average American suddenly realized that same miracle could be sitting in their own home. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 286 million of these quarters in 2017. That's millions of chances for something to go wrong, and millions of chances for one rare mistake to still be waiting in circulation. Go through your change. Check your jars. Look through that old coffee can of coins you've been ignoring. Because these quarters are still out there, and the person who finds the next one might not just be a collector, they might be an overnight millionaire. Focus on 2017 Philadelphia Mint Mark P. Ozark National Scenic Riverways design. Search for dramatic doubling, die cracks, and off-center strikes. Don't dismiss a coin just because it looks normal. The most valuable ones often do. One collector's life changed forever when he noticed a tiny doubling on the date. He almost spent it. Instead, he discovered it was worth over $2 million. This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it stunned the entire coin world when experts realized it could be worth up to $3 million. Yes, we're talking about a 1985 Washington quarter with a tiny little D mint mark. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than pocket change. Something you might toss on a dresser, slip into a parking meter, or even lose under the couch. But hidden inside this ordinary-looking coin is a story so rare, so unbelievable, that it turned everyday change into a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. Most people don't even stop to look at their quarters. They come and go so fast in daily life. But collectors know, some of these coins carry secrets from the mint. Flaws, accidents, and mistakes that were never meant to escape into the public's hands. And the 1985 D quarter? It has a backstory that makes it one of the most talked about quarters of modern times. Imagine this. The Denver Mint in 1985 was running full speed, producing hundreds of millions of quarters for circulation. The presses pounded day and night. And yet, somewhere in that chaos, a handful of coins slipped through the cracks. Struck on the wrong planchets. Misaligned. Or bearing errors so shocking that the moment they were discovered, experts could hardly believe their eyes. Collectors were shocked when one of these error quarters surfaced at auction. It looked like an ordinary coin until you turned it under the light. The lettering seemed off. The mint mark looked unusual. And when professional graders examined it, they realized they weren't just holding a quarter. They were holding $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because when this coin hit the auction block, bidding erupted. Dealers fought to own it. Collectors whispered about it. Every paddle in the room seemed to shoot up at once. The price climbed higher, past thousands, past hundreds of thousands, and eventually, shockingly, past the $1 million mark. By the time the hammer finally fell, this little piece of metal had sold for more than most people's homes, and it didn't stop there. Stories spread of other 1985 D quarters, rare variations with doubled dies, off-center strikes, or struck on planchets intended for other denominations. Each one became the stuff of legend. A single quarter that cost 25 cents to spend, suddenly worth hundreds of thousands. And in the rarest cases, up to $3 million, think about that for a moment. A single coin so rare, so mysterious, that it could change your life in an instant. One man's pocket change became a down payment on a dream. Another collector's discovery turned into a retirement fund. And yet, thousands of these coins still circulate unnoticed, hiding in jars, tucked away in drawers, rattling around in car cup holders, waiting for someone with the right eye to see them. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The D mint mark under Washington's portrait should look sharp, perfectly struck, and consistent. But in some rare cases, the mint mark is misplaced, doubled, or looks completely different than it should. Sometimes, the coin itself is struck on a different metal blank, a copper cent planchet, or even a nickel planchet. These errors shouldn't exist. And yet, they do. Collectors call them miracles. Dealers call them jackpots. And for the lucky few who find them, they're life-changing. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. Not every coin that looks unusual is worth a fortune. Many collectors have been fooled by machine doubling, scratches, or simple damage. That's why professional grading is so critical. Only the coins certified by top grading services, like PCGS or NGC, command those sky-high prices at auction. Without that certification, your coin could be dismissed as ordinary pocket change, and yet, the dream remains. Because right now, as you listen to this, thousands of unsearched jars and old rolls of quarters are sitting untouched. Maybe in your house. Maybe in a relative's attic. Maybe even in the change you got back at the grocery store today. Inside them could be one of the rarest quarters ever struck by the Denver Mint. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Collectors are scanning every 1985 quarter they see. And still, only a handful have been discovered. Which means the odds of you stumbling across one are still very real, but what makes this story truly unforgettable is that the coin doesn't look flashy. It doesn't gleam with gold. It doesn't scream treasure. It hides in plain sight, waiting for someone bold enough to look closer. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through pocket change. A quarter slips through your fingers, and something about it feels off. The D mint mark looks strange. The strike isn't perfect. You put it aside. Later, you research it. And suddenly, you realize you're holding a coin worth not 25 cents, not even $100, but possibly millions. Collectors who've had this moment describe it as electric. The heart races. The hands shake. Because in that instant, you know your life has changed forever. And here's how you can tell if your coin might be the one. First, check the mint mark. On genuine $1 million varieties, the D may appear doubled, weak, or out of place. Next, look at the edges. Is the strike off-center? Is the rim uneven? Finally, examine the metal itself. If the coin feels thinner, lighter, or looks coppery instead of the usual nickel-clad silver, it could be a wrong planchet error, one of the rarest and most valuable mistakes the mint ever let escape. But here's the warning. Many people mistake ordinary wear and tear for rare errors. Don't assume too quickly. If you suspect you found something extraordinary, protect it immediately. Do not clean it. Do not scratch it. Place it in a holder, and get it certified by professionals, because the difference between an ordinary 1985 D quarter and $1 million 1985 D quarter comes down to tiny details, the kind of details that can mean the difference between pocket change and life-changing fortune. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, take a second look. That quarter you're about to spend could be the very coin collectors are chasing. A coin worth more than $3 million.